Welcome to episode 2 of One Way Sports. I am, of course, and PWay. On today's episode, lots of stuff coming up for you, lots of exciting stuff coming up for you. I have a full NFL awards prediction for you. I'll talk MVP, offensive, defensive player of the year, offensive, defensive rookie of the year as well. And then I will do some predictions at the end of it. The first ever edition of PWay's Parlay is today, a 3-pick parlay for you for this Sunday's game. But of course, today is Friday, and what a game last night we had, huh? We're going to start with the reaction from Cheifs and Ravens last night. All right, let's get into things. Final score 27-20. Chiefs win the opener. They lost the opener last year to the Lions. They win this one right here. What a ball game it was. I mean, the first quarter was electric, exactly what you wanted. We had a 20-minute delay. It was almost like the football gods were like, how excited really are you for football? Are you willing to wait another 20 minutes? Because I got a show for you. And it showed out in the first quarter. It was electric. Both teams scored a touchdown in the first quarter. You had that you had the Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson drive to start the game. I mean, that looked exactly like I thought it would look when I did the pod. You know, when the pod came out on Wednesday, I thought it would look like a Madden video game, and it did. You know, there was a couple times they got Derrick Henry downhill, and then Lamar just decided to pull it, and he got a bunch of yards, and then boom, Derrick Henry scores the opening touchdown of the game. Who's surprised? But then the Chiefs go back the other way immediately. Rashee Rice gets going early, and then they unveil Xavier Worthy. I mean, first ever touch in the NFL, and it's a touchdown. That's just ridiculous. His speed was on display in a big way tonight. That was a 21-yard rushing touchdown for him there. But I want to talk about a little bit about here the kickoff rule for starters. It looked weird. I mean, Mike Tirico had to explain it again tonight, but it still looks weird. I think it's still going to take time for all of us to get used to it. It would help if we got more returns tonight. One team completely, just never kicked to him. The other team, you had a couple returns. So we'll see how it plays out for this full weekend coming up here. Maybe some more thoughts on that later, maybe not. And then the illegal formation flags. You heard Mike Tirico said, or I believe they went to the rules analyst, and he said immediately that this was a point of emphasis that the referees wanted to explain. And I guess it's about the linemen all being, their helmets all being lined up or something like that. But I think there was 3 or 4 called on on Ronnie Stanley on the opening drive, which was just crazy. I was like, okay, well, this is clearly a penalty that they're showing on Friday or on Thursday, and it'll probably get shown again in Friday's game, or in tonight's game, between Packers and Eagles, that they're really trying to put an emphasis on this. So we'll see how it plays out in the first couple of weeks. You usually see this. The NFL doesn't tell you about a rule that they're putting an emphasis on, and then the first 2-3 weeks they just call it a bunch of times, and we all get pissed about it, and then the players inevitably adjust, and it's called a little bit differently down the stretch. And then of course it's never called in the playoffs because it's a whole different game there. I mean, it was a really solid game. I loved it from start to finish. Patrick Mahomes is still Patrick Mahomes. Shocker about that. Lamar Jackson looked really, really good tonight. 122 rushing yards from Lamar tonight. I mean, he's just so special. I believe I saw the stat tonight that he moved into 3rd all-time rushing. I mean, he's probably going to shatter that number by the time it's done, as long as he stays healthy. The most dual threat quarterback we have in the league, and it's not even really close at this moment. Derrick Henry only 46 yards. I thought it was interesting. They got him going really early there on the opening drive, and then they couldn't keep him going. They didn't go to him really at all in the second quarter. Isaiah Likely had it going in the passing game tonight. He had a career high in catches and yards. We'll talk about the toe tap here in a second. Actually, let's just talk about it right now. That is legitimately, when I saw it, I was like, that is Kevin Durant against Milwaukee. He just needs a half shoe size smaller, and KD and them win the series, and Likely and them at least score 6. And you saw Harbaugh, he had the 2 up. They were going for 2, and they had a special play then if they were going for 2, because I think you have to know Harbaugh and how prepared he is, that they probably had a 2-point play exactly made up for this game against the Chiefs, knowing, hey, if this exact situation arises, we're going to go for 2, and we're not going to let Patrick Mahomes even have the ball back. Because you have to remember, in the regular season overtime, it's just about, it's different. If you score a touchdown, the first team scores a touchdown, game's over. So I liked that the Ravens were going to do that. And we've seen Harbaugh do that before, especially with Lamar Jackson as his quarterback. You trust that guy because why wouldn't you? If you roll him out on a pass, he can still rush it in, maybe better than anybody in the NFL. So that was really good. I thought in the second quarter, the defenses really started to show up and play a lot better. We saw both teams turn the football over in that second quarter. Lamar got pushed or got hit. It looked like by their rookie guard there. I don't remember his name right now, but he got hit by that rookie guard and the ball just came out. And I thought it was smart by Lamar. It looked like he was trying to jump in there full, all the way. And then once it got loose, you saw him. He's just like, hey, it's week one. My hands are already in there. There's a bunch of other guys already diving on the ball. I'm not going to jump back in there. So it was unfortunate for him not to be able to recover that football. And then Mahomes threw that pick. I think it was he got pressure in his face and then just threw it over the middle. And it was intercepted. What was that? Roquan Smith, I believe. And then that set the Ravens up. That they scored points. I think they got a field goal right before the half. Tucker also missed a 53-yarder. I didn't know he was 1 for 5 on 50-plus yarders last season. That's honestly shocking from the guy that the season before that has the longest field goal in NFL history. So that's something to keep an eye on. Is Tucker's leg starting to wear out from all the kicks he's made and probably how hard he prepares every single week and in the offseason and stuff like that. I don't have his name or his age off the top of my head right now, but man, so he's 1 for his last 6 then because he missed that one tonight as well. I don't think he hit another 50-yarder. He didn't. No, his long was 32 tonight. So that's something to keep an eye on. I did not see that coming at all. Chiefs defense, there was some question marks. They lose L'Jarius Sneed. What happens? Is Chris Jones getting older? No, they're still just as good. Drew Tranquil in the middle now, and then McDuffie on the outside, and Jalen Watson looked plenty good tonight. You saw Jalen Watson make that big play against Zay Flowers. McDuffie made some plays tonight as well. Chris Jones obviously wrecking the game like he always does, and then you saw the rest of the D-line get pressure and have that fumble be caused. So the Chiefs defense, if it's going to be this good combined with what the offense looked like tonight, I mean, the Chiefs look like they have 2 legit wide receiver weapons, which we always know they had Travis Kelce as a weapon in some of their running backs. Pacheco was really good tonight, running hard like nobody else does tonight. I mean, he had 45 yards and a touchdown, but he gets big yards when you need them in certain situations that maybe just get overlooked because of the flash of the rest of the team. But Pacheco, or excuse me, Worthy and Rice. Rashee Rice, 7 for 103 tonight, and he was just 9 targets. He was just all over the place. I mean, he caught so many balls. He had a bunch of run after catch tonight, and then Worthy had 2 catches for 47 and the touchdown. You saw that deep bomb that he hit, and then he had the 1 rush, 21 yards and a touchdown. So 2 touchdowns for Xavier Worthy in his debut on 3 touches. I mean, that's just ridiculous stuff from this guy. I'm already kicking myself because you'll hear later in the podcast when I do the awards, I said I essentially didn't think that Worthy was going to be in the mix for the offensive rookie of the year because I didn't think maybe he was going to be the Chiefs' Tyreek Hill. And then tonight I'm watching the first, couple time he touches the ball and I'm like, well, maybe he is Tyreek Hill 2.0. Not as I don't even want to say anything. Like, he's just as fast. It was ridiculous. He touches the ball and you're like, whoa. That's a different type of speed. And we've seen, like, we thought John Ross could have this potential, but Andy Reid has a way of making certain guys like this. McCole Hardman has had success in this offense. Obviously, they built Tyreek into what he eventually became. And then now we're seeing it with Worthy. It's pretty special to watch. And then clearly Mahomes has a connection and wants to get him the ball right away. Kelce's a little bit of a slow start tonight, 3 for 34. But like I mentioned, I think that I mentioned this in the season preview. I think it's smart that they don't use Travis as much as they absolutely have to. Obviously, it's week 1, and I'm not going to overreact like he only had 3 catches tonight or whatever the case may be. But I think if they don't have to use him as much and use these young legs and Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy and some of the other guys that they have and run the football with Pacheco, I like that for their long-term success heading into the playoffs. Anyways, let's talk about Isaiah Likely a little bit more. I mean, Andrews was clearly their number 1 last year until he got hurt, but you could tell Likely was really starting to come on. He kind of has a different burst to him when he catches the ball. He's so fast, and he can make people miss tonight. He almost did the Lamar Jackson high school clip from the goal line when he just goes skirt, on the goal line when he's in high school, and likely almost essentially did that on his touchdown tonight. Made a bunch of guys miss. I thought he looks like Lamar's number one target, and I think quarterbacks like Lamar probably like throwing to big fellas like that because he has a bunch of smaller guys as well. I mean, Zay looked really had a quick burst again tonight, but was kind of kept in check, 6 for 37. So you like that he got 6 balls tonight, 6 grabs, but you need more than 37. The Chiefs kind of had him contained, maybe just playing it and just everything in front. Don't let him go over the top of your head. Bateman caught that huge ball down the sideline that got them a chance. I think that was on the drive where Likely had the toe tap. Yeah, it was. So the explosive plays were there at times, but I really liked what I saw from Likely tonight. It'll be interesting to see how they work Derrick Henry, and I think they were saying in the pregame, like, they didn't know, and I don't know anything about formation, so I'm just repeating what they said, but they were wondering if it was going to be in pistol, and then somebody else on the broadcast thought it's going to be a different run formation. So maybe the Ravens are still figuring out what type of run schemes they're going to use with a bigger back in Derrick Henry, because you saw Justice Hill in there a lot, and there was a lot of screen passes, dump offs to him, and some different type of actions with Justice Hill that as opposed to Derrick Henry, and then obviously that line still gelling in week 1. Xavier Worthy is just going to be special. Congrats to all the fantasy owners that took a bet on him and late in rounds. Big first week for you right there. If you're in a PPR league, that's a big time week for you. But incredible first game. Loved the first game. Couldn't have asked for a better ending there. Unfortunate that he doesn't get the toe tap, and maybe we get overtime or see at least get to see the 2-point conversion, because who doesn't want to see that? A game-winning attempt for a 2-point conversion there. But overall, great first game of the season. Excited to see Packers and Eagles tonight. Excited to kind of see what the atmosphere in Brazil is like. I obviously, if any of you guys watch any soccer, especially world soccer, when Brazil plays, boy, we could be in for something really special tomorrow if Brazil has a huge NFL following. We remember in Germany they were singing Country Road. The London games are always great. You see a bunch of different jerseys, and the fans are passionate about it. I'm excited to see what Brazil could look like tomorrow. I hope the field is up to the standard, and you would expect it would be, especially being in Brazil, a country that has so many world-class soccer pitches out there for them. So really excited to see what the atmosphere in Brazil is going to be like. Interested to see if the weather has any effect. I wonder if it'll be raining or if it'll be super high humidity and hot. So something to keep an eye on there. I think if I had to take a pick, I'm gonna pick the Packers tomorrow. No money line or anything like that. Just I think I like the Packers to win, just because you think of the continuity that they had at the end of last season with this young team. You had really the only big change that you make is Josh Jacobs. Just Josh Jacobs really, which is, you can implement a running back, especially one as good as Josh Jacobs is, and those young receivers really started to come on. And let's see if Jordan Love and Matt LaFleur can pick it up right where they left off. And I just think the Eagles with 2 new coordinators, maybe it takes them a little bit of time to figure some things out offensively and defensively. I expect it to be a good, high-scoring offensive game, though. Really excited to see Saquon's debut, obviously. And let's get it on, guys. Full slate of college, like I mentioned later, and then also, full slate of Sunday NFL coming up here. All right, I'm going to kick it to myself for the rest of the pod. NFL awards coming up, all 5 picks, and then I'll give you a PWay's parlay on the way out. We're recording this portion of the podcast about 10 a.m. Pacific time here, Thursday, September 5th, day of the Chiefs-Ravens kickoff game. Ladies and gentlemen, we have officially made it to football season. This Sunday kicks off the first full slate of NFL games, and boy, am I excited. I'm sure all of you guys are as well. It's been a long wait, over 200 days, but we have officially made it. It is officially football season, and we are in full swing. College football in full swing as well. But for this portion of the podcast, I just talked about Ravens Chiefs before. Now we're going to talk about NFL award predictions. So before the first full slate of NFL games, I wanted to give you my award predictions. So we're going to pick MVP, Offensive Defensive Player of the Year, Offensive Rookie of the Year, and Defensive Rookie of the Year. But I'm not going to be doing this from just a fan perspective of who I think is going to win the award. I'm doing this strictly from a gambling perspective. Who do I think has the opportunity to win the award with the best odds attached to that player as well? And then I'll send you off into the first full weekend of games with the first ever edition on this podcast of PWay's Parlay. I will give you 3 picks today, maybe 4 in some weeks, maybe 2 in others. I will give you a disclaimer. I do not sit here as a great gambler. I'll just be honest with you. I'm not a great gambler, but hey, there's nothing like putting some action on the game on Sunday. So just keep that in mind. If you don't like what you hear from the parlay, maybe not a bad idea to fade it. Some of you guys have got picks from me in the past, and no, rarely do they hit. And if you fade, sometimes that can be the recipe to success. But that's what we'll go through today on this portion of the podcast. We're going to start with the NFL awards. So we're going to talk MVP first. This award is dominated by quarterbacks. 11 years in a row, a quarterback's won this award. We should pretty much just rename it the most valuable quarterback, because the last person to win it, not a quarterback, was Adrian Peterson in 2012. That was when he came back from the ACL injury and just went crazy for Minnesota. But this is a quarterback-driven award. I'm not going to pick anybody. I'm not going to pick a skill position player. That's kind of what they've just made Offensive Rookie in the Year, that award for. So your top odds for MVP: Patrick Mahomes plus 475. Pretty obvious. I talked about it in the last podcast, how I believe this could potentially be their best offense since he's been in Kansas City. Remember, I did talk about this as well. The MVP is essentially whoever is going to get the 1 seed in each conference. Those 2 quarterbacks will go head to head for the award. You know, there may be some other situations that arise where a quarterback goes crazy and finishes second. But I firmly believe this has now become a whoever gets the 1 seed in each conference, their quarterback. Remember that Ravens and 49ers game from last year? Everyone was talking about whoever won that game was going to win the MVP. Lamar and the Ravens win that game, he wins the MVP. So Mahomes is the favorite at plus 475. Pretty decent value in terms of, you know, betting on Patrick Mahomes to win an award. Plus 475, you get a decent amount of money. Second on the list is CJ Stroud, plus 800. Pretty wild to see a second-year player, a second-year quarterback, especially being the second MVP favorite. But like I said, they should win the division. I picked them to win the division. And if he can ball out and get the 1 seed, this is a narrative-driven award. You're telling me voters wouldn't want to give CJ Stroud year 2, follows it up after a great rookie year, gets his team the number 1 seed. It's going to be pretty hard to argue with that narrative if he does end up getting the 1 seed and the Texans are as successful as he is this year. I think he only had 2 interceptions last year. If he can replicate that again this year and then add, 5, 8, 10 more touchdowns on top of that, he's going to be firmly entrenched in this award. I think he's going to be there all season long. Number 3 on the list, Josh Allen, plus 900. Now, Allen doesn't have Diggs anymore. He's been in this conversation for many years. In many ways, it feels like the Luka Doncic conversation in the NBA. It feels like every preseason we just decide that Josh Allen's going to win the MVP that year, similar to what we do with Luka in the NBA. I don't know if this is Josh's year. It could be because of the fact that now he's without Stephon Diggs. People think he has less weapons to work with. So if he goes out there and balls out, wins the division over Aaron Rodgers and the Jets and the Dolphins, steals the 1 seed from Mahomes and Stroud, Allen's going to win the MVP, because I think voters are just waiting at this point to have a reason to give Josh Allen an MVP so this conversation can be over with. Plus 900 is great value for a player like Josh Allen. You just have to believe that the Bills are going to be the number 1 seed in the AFC. I don't believe that. I believe Josh Allen has an MVP numbers type of season. But once again, like I said, you got to have that 1 seed in order to be in that conversation. Number 4 on the list, just behind Allen, is Joe Burrow. I picked the Bengals to win their division, the AFC North. I picked the Bengals to go to the Super Bowl in the last podcast. So this is hard for me to not bet Burrow here, but just stay tuned a little bit later and I'll tell you why I'm not picking Burrow. If I was going to bet somebody but the person who I haven't decided to pick yet, who I haven't revealed, if I wasn't picking him, I would pick Burrow because of the fact that I believe that Burrow and them will go to the Super Bowl. If they win the AFC North and steal that 1 seed, there's no doubt Joe Burrow will win the award because of the fact he's coming back from the thumb injury. He's also in the conversation for comeback player of the year. I think he's too good of a player to win Comeback Player of the Year, in my opinion. Burrow will be in this conversation if he can stay healthy. Obviously, he gets Jamar Chase back. Still undecided if he's going to play week 1, but they know Jamar Chase is going to be healthy for this season and going forward. So Burrow has all of his weapons: Higgins, Chase, all the other guys in the running back room, as well as Zach Moss, Chase Brown. So Burrow's a great bet at plus 950. You just have to bank that he's going to stay healthy all year, and the Bengals are going to be better than the Ravens and some of these other great teams in the AFC. Number 5 on the list. First, NFC quarterback. That's pretty wild that the first 4 are AFC quarterbacks. I just think the AFC is so loaded that whoever wins the one seed in the AFC, it's going to be pretty hard not to give that person the MVP just because of the fact of the gauntlet they had to run through in order to get that 1 seed in the AFC. The first NFC quarterback, you probably guessed it, Jalen Hurts, plus 1,200. Be interesting to see if he follows up from a shaky year last year. We had heard all rumblings all year that he had that knee injury last year, never really talked about it. Jalen Hurts is a guy that's just, he's never going to quit on himself. You saw it at Alabama. Tua takes his job. He stays a whole year to back him up, comes up big in the SEC championship game. So Jalen Hurts at plus 1,200. You really have to like the Kellen Moore offense. It's just that simple. I just think that Jalen, because now that he has Saquon in the backfield, some of those rushing touchdowns he got 2 seasons ago when he was firmly in that MVP conversation, I think he finished second that year. It's just going to be interesting to see if he gets as many red zone touches running that. Do they run as much tush push, or do they just simply hand the ball to Saquon and let him run it in? I just think a couple of those touchdowns might get taken away from Jalen, therefore leading him to not have as bolsterous of numbers as he did 2 years ago when he nearly won the MVP when they were the number 1 seed as well. Next NFC quarterback is Jordan Love, plus 1,400. Really interesting to see that he's this high up here. Obviously, he finished the year so well last season. So well. I mean, he was maybe the best quarterback in the NFC for the last, 6 weeks or so in the regular season. Plus 1,400. Do you think the Packers are gonna beat the Lions in the division? And do you think they're gonna be better than the Eagles and the Niners to get the 1 seed? If you do, bet Jordan Love, because plus 1,400 is a really good number. Jordan Love's a hell of a quarterback. Year 2 of him starting. If you like the Packers this much this year, just bet Love to win the MVP. If you believe that they're better, than like I said, than the Niners, Eagles, and the Lions in that division. I don't, so I wouldn't bet Jordan Love to win MVP, but I don't think it's a horrible bet if you're a big-time Packers fan and you don't believe as much in the top end of the NFC this year. Let's go Aaron Rodgers, plus 1,800. That's juicy. That is juicy, especially when you think about these spite seasons I talked about in the last episode. These spite seasons that Rodgers has when people tells him he's not good at football anymore, he doesn't care about his teammates, you should have showed up to OTAs, all the bullshit. He doesn't care. When that happens, he usually plays his best football and wins MVPs. And oh, by the way, he's reunited with Nathaniel Hackett, who was the offensive coordinator when he won those last 2 MVPs in Green Bay. I believe they had a red zone offense that they called the gold zone because they just scored every time they entered the red zone because they had the running backs and Aaron Jones, and then you had Devontae Adams and all of those receivers that Aaron Rodgers had the ability to throw to. If you think the Jets are going to be as good as I do this year, you might want to take a chance at betting Rodgers at 1,800, because if the Jets get the 1 seed, depending on who wins the NFC, Rodgers may get a 5th MVP. It's just hard because, like I said, it's a narrative-driven award, and Rodgers won 2 recently, and let's be honest, he's not made any friends with the media. But if he has the season that he has had in years past when he won MVPs, it's going to be tough not to give Rodgers an MVP if he has 35 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 4,800 yards, 4,500 yards, whatever the case may be, and the Jets win 13 games or something. It's going to be hard not to give Rodgers the MVP because we knew how bad the Jets were last year without a quarterback. So you add Aaron Rodgers and they get the 1 seed. It really proves to you how valuable Aaron Rodgers is to that offense. And now, last but not least, I'm only going to give you the top 8 in each category. Only the top 8 in each category. We will have a little graphic here on the side if you want to take a look at that as well. Jared Goff, plus 2,000. That's my MVP bet. Like I said, this is about value in the gambling line. Now, I told you in the last episode that I'm picking the Lions to go to the Super Bowl, and I'm picking the Lions to win the Super Bowl, which means I think the Lions have the 1 seed and they have home field advantage through the playoffs. So if they can get the 1 seed and secure the 1 seed, I believe that Jared Goff will win the MVP this year. He had 4,500 yards last season, 30 touchdowns, 12 picks on 67% completion percentage. Now, he needs to lower the interceptions and he needs to raise his touchdown mark. I'm thinking somewhere in the world of 36 touchdowns and 7 picks with 4,900 yards can win him the MVP this season. And plus 2,000 are really good numbers. And if you remember from the last podcast, I said the Lions have 14 games in the regular season inside of a dome. No matter what your quarterback skill set is, playing in a dome with no weather has to be an advantage to putting up better stats and putting up better numbers. There's no doubt about that. It's just a proven fact. You have no wind, you have no nothing. I think Goff, with all of those games indoors, plus the fact that I think the Lions are going to be the best team in the NFC this year, I think Jared Goff is the best value pick to win the MVP. He's my pick at plus 2,000. Jared Goff is your 2024 most valuable player. Let's go offensive rookie of the year now. So interesting stat here. Last 5 winners, pretty balanced. 3 wide receivers, 2 running backs. CMC won it last year. No surprise there. He was the best offensive player in football. Could have been Tyreek as well, but Tyreek kind of fell off at the end of the last season with those injuries in a couple of those games. So Christian wins it, but balanced. 3 running backs, 3 wide receivers, 2 running backs. So if you're going to stay with the trend, you probably bet running back here. So at the top, betting favorite is Tyreek at plus 700. Now, Tyreek nearly had 2,000 yards last year. It's really hard for me to not just sit here and say he's plus 700. If he stays healthy, if Tua stays healthy, Tyreek's probably going to have 15 to 1,800 yards, 10 touchdowns, whatever the case may be. I just don't believe that Miami's offense will be as good this year as they were last year. I think it was the first year of kind of everybody figuring out what the speed was and what Tyreek was. And with Tua, if Tua stays healthy, Tyreek will put up monster numbers again. I just don't know if he's going to be able to stay as healthy as he was through most of the season last year to put up those monster numbers. Christian McCaffrey, plus 850. Tempting. Hard to win it 2 years in a row, though, because, like I said, all of these awards are narrative driven. So it's hard to win an award 2 years in a row. You really have to do something special. If Christian stays healthy and the Niners are just as good as they were last year, hard to see him not winning the Offensive Rookie of the Year again this year. I'm not going to bet him because I want to see somebody new. But those first 2 picks, like, what am I going to sit here and tell you it's a bad bet to bet on Tyreek Hill or Christian McCaffrey to win Offensive Rookie of the Year or to win Offensive Player of the Year? I'm not going to do it. But if you want to bet those guys, by all means, they're going to be in this conversation for the full season as long as they're healthy. Next up is CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb was a monster last year, just got a bag from Dallas as well. Missed a little bit of that training camp, but I think it might help him actually. Doesn't take as many hits in training camp. Stays healthy, looks fast. CeeDee is one of my favorite players in the league. I love watching him play. A top tier route runner, can take the top off. They gave him the ball in the running game as well a little bit last year. Some jet sweeps down in the goal line. CeeDee will have another monster year. Do you believe the Cowboys are going to be as good as they were last year? I don't. I just don't think they have the running backs they had last year. Their defense may fall off a little bit with Dan Quinn. We'll see what happens. I think CeeDee individually has a great year, but I just don't know if it's good enough to win the Offensive Rookie of the Year, especially over those first 2 guys that we mentioned. And then next up, you have the LSU boys. Jamar Chase plus 1,200. Justin Jefferson plus 1,300. So Jamar Chase obviously reports to camp on Wednesday. Limited practice, still unknown as I'm recording this right now if he is scheduled to play on Sunday. I don't know if he plays Sunday. I think he still has a monster season, though, especially with wanting to get his money. Because if he balls out even, if he goes off again this year, puts up crazy numbers again, the Bengals are going to have to pay him maybe $1 million more than Justin Jefferson got. It was reported that he wants a penny more. He might ask for it. The contract might get raised if Jamar goes off and wins All Pro and wins the Offensive Player of the Year. That would be crazy. I think the Bengals offense will be balanced enough with Higgins being really good this year. In a couple of their running backs. If they can be more balanced, I think they're a better football team. Therefore, I don't know if Jamar Chase puts up the Offensive Player of the Year numbers. Justin Jefferson plus 1,300. I think his number's only that high because of who his quarterback is. If Kirk Cousins was still his quarterback, I think he's probably still in the top 3 favorites. He's the best receiver in football. I don't think there's any questions about that. I just don't trust his quarterback. I don't trust their offense. I don't know if their team's going to be anywhere near good enough for him to win Offensive Player of the Year. Next up is my pick. Plus 1,500, Breece Hall. Breece Hall is a special running back that can take it to the house from anywhere on the field. And if I'm staying with the trend of 3 wide receivers, 2 running backs, I'm going to pick a running back to win it this year. And I'm going to take Breece Hall plus 1,500. Love the number. 994 rushing yards, 994 yards, 5 rushing touchdowns last year. But he also had 76 catches for 600 yards and 4 receiving touchdowns as well. If Rodgers stays healthy and they have the balanced offense, Breece Hall will put up, I think, 1,400 rushing yards at least, maybe 9 touchdowns, and then he'll catch somewhere between 50 and 75 balls again out of the backfield for probably 600 yards again. I think he could potentially have a 2,000 plus yard all-purpose season, and that would win him the Offensive Rookie of the Year. I think it's a massive breakout year for the Jets if Rodgers stays healthy, and especially Breece Hall if that offensive line is as good as we expect them to be. I'm really excited to see this Jets team, but especially Breece Hall with Aaron Rodgers as his quarterback, setting him up when he sees a check at the line that Breece can exploit. It'll be really special if those guys can all stay healthy. Breece Hall is my pick to win Offensive Player of the Year. The last 2 on the list were the last 2 remaining of the top 8 were Bijan and Amon-Ra. Bijan Robinson plus 1,800, Amon-Ra plus 1,800 as well. So the reason I didn't pick Amon-Ra was because I picked Goff to win the MVP. But if I didn't like Goff to win the MVP, Amon-Ra might be a bet here because of the fact that I think Amon-Ra showed everybody in the league last year just how special he was. Wasn't voted a Pro Bowler, makes first team All-Pro. That just goes to show whoever's voting for Pro Bowls probably has no idea what they're talking about. All-Pro is what you look at. He was first team All-Pro last year. I expect another monster season from him this year. The only issue is they have so many weapons. Jamison Williams, fully healthy again this year. You have Montgomery and Gibbs in the backfield. Does he get enough touches to put up the numbers that he needs to win the Offensive Rookie of the Year? Bijan's or Offensive Player of the Year. Bijan's a really interesting case because of the fact that we know how good and how special he was when he came out of Texas last year. I think we were all a little disappointed in the way they used him. If they use him the way they're supposed to this year, like the way the Niners use Christian McCaffrey and hopefully the Eagles use Saquon Barkley, Bijan Robinson might be the best value. If I'm betting running backs, it would be Bijan and Breece. Those would be my 2 bets. I'm just going to stick with Breece because I think the Jets will just be a little bit better this year and allow him to put up a little bit more numbers in primetime spots where voters will really get to recognize just how special this guy is. So there you have it. Breece Hall plus 1,500, my Offensive Player of the Year prediction. Defensive Player of the Year. So the D-line has won 12 of the last 13 of these awards. Obviously, Stephon Gilmore won this award back in 2019 as a corner. Pretty special. The last 3 winners in order: Myles Garrett, Nick Bosa, TJ Watt. Pretty obvious to think those are the 3 best, 3 of the 5 best in the league. I think the other 2 in the conversation will be guys we talk about here. The favorite this year is TJ Watt and Micah Parsons. Both of them at plus 550. What am I going to tell you? Not to bet one of these guys. TJ Watt is a freak show. Unbelievable off the edge. Can pick the ball off, tip balls at the line, drop back in coverage and make a stop if you want. But he's a sack guy. If he every year you think that he could potentially break the sack record because he's that good. And he's got weapons on the D-line with him. They just re-signed Cam Hayward. I believe they have Highsmith on the other side. They had Peyton Wilson, the linebacking core, and Patrick Queen. The Steelers defense could be even better this year. And if TJ Watt continues to eat and puts up like 20 sacks again this year, it's going to be hard for him not to win that award. Micah as well. I just worry about the rest of the defense without Dan Quinn. Micah himself is one of the best players in the NFL without a doubt, especially defensively. But I just don't know if their defense will be good enough for Micah to put up the numbers that he needs to. And do they just finally say, no more linebacker ever? You're just going to rush the passer every single down. Go get us the quarterback. Help us stop the run. Be interesting to see what Micah's year is like this year. Okay, next up on the list, my pick to win Defensive Player of the Year. Plus 700, Max Crosby. Max Crosby's been one of the best defensive players in the league since he got in the league, but especially these last 2-3 years, I think the league and then in the media have really started to recognize, be like, wait, this dude doesn't come off the field. He plays harder than anybody, and he wrecks games like nobody's business. As a Chargers fan, you worry about him every single time you play him, especially when you have him week 1 when he's healthiest. That is a scary, scary sight. He was 4th in the voting in 2023, so he's in this conversation. People are starting to vote for him, realizing what he's doing. 14 and a half sacks, 90 tackles, 31 QB hits, and a league high 23 tackles for loss in 2023. I think he's going to need closer to 18, 19 sacks combined with as many TFLs as he did last year in order to win this award. I worry about the Raiders defense as a whole, but it feels like more and more this award can be won by guys that don't have to be on a top 5 D line. It obviously helps. The last 3 guys were all on top 5 D line, or at least defenses in the league. So the Raiders need the defense to be really, really good. But like I said, Max has been in this conversation for the last couple of years. Maybe this is the year the voters finally say, you know what? Those other 3 guys have all won one. It's time for Max to get one because he's on their level as well. Myles Garrett, plus 800, reigning defensive player of the year. Never a bad bet. Like these first 5, really, because Nick Bosa's next at plus 850. I mean, you can't go wrong betting any of those guys. I would be surprised if one of those 5 didn't win it, to be honest. You're talking about, in my opinion, the 5 best edge rushers in the league, and TJ Watt, Micah Parsons, Max Crosby, Myles Garrett, and Nick Bosa. The Niners and Nick Bosa is an interesting one, and so is the Browns with Myles Garrett at plus 800. If you think those guys stay healthy all year and put up the numbers, then bet them because they're at a better number than those first 3 guys that I mentioned. Aiden Hutchinson plus 1100. I'm intrigued by Aiden. He's had a really good first 2 years in the NFL, really started to come into his own again last year. You can tell he's stepping into that leadership role. Could this be a breakout year for Aiden where he has 20 sacks or 18 sacks, and that Lions D-line is even better than it was, or maybe not. They need to be better than they were last year. They were a good defense last year, but at times they really struggled. They had DJ Reader on that D-line, so Aiden is going to have the ability to rush the quarterback at a premium level this year. Can he put up the stats? Can the Lions win as many games as I think they're going to win in order to be in the conversation? We'll see. Josh Allen Hines from the Jaguars and Will Anderson Jr., both plus 3,000 to round out the top 8. Jaguars, I don't think are going to be anywhere near good enough for Josh Allen Hines to win this award. I like him, though. Hell of a football player. Josh Allen Hines wrecked the Bills game against Josh Allen last year. So he's a damn good football player, slept on because he plays in Jacksonville, doesn't get as much love as he should. And then Will Anderson, he's just going into year 2. I don't know if the Texans defense is going to be top 5 in the league. Might be because D'Amico's that good of a coach. But Will Anderson's still coming into his own. And if I was going to bet, if I was going to bet a Texan, I might bet Danielle Hunter before I bet Will Anderson. But there you have it. Those are the top 8 for Defensive Player of the Year. And my pick, once again, Max Crosby plus 700. Okay, let's get into the rookies now. Offensive Rookie of the Year first. So the last 10 years, this is the most balanced award in the NFL the last 10 years in terms of offensive players getting it. 4 running backs have won it. 3 quarterbacks and 3 wide receivers have won it. So that just goes to show that those 3 positions, you come in the NFL, if you're ready to play, you can seriously put up some numbers. Caleb is the favorite. Of course, Caleb Williams is the favorite at plus 135. The Hard Knocks stuff was so sweet. If you didn't watch the final episode on Tuesday, there's an edit of Caleb Williams throwing passes, and it moves all together in one. It's a repetition. You see a guy catch a ball, the camera comes back, he's throwing another one. That was like that was top tier content. Caleb is so fun to watch, so special. And what's interesting is he might be in the driver's position because of the narrative that would go along if he breaks the Bears' single season quarterback records. 3,800 yards and 29 touchdowns are the single season records for the Bears. That was set by Eric Kramer in 1995. They've never had a 4,000 yard passer. It's hard to comprehend that. I'm not going to continue to harp home about how bad their quarterback play has been. It's the NFL. It's hard to win games and it's hard to be a great quarterback in the NFL, but it is shocking to see that Jay Cutler never had a 4,000 yard season. I couldn't believe that. But if Caleb puts up 4,000 yards and 30 touchdowns, which would be a crazy rookie year, he's going to win the award because the Bears have never had a quarterback this talented. And if he goes out there, and especially if they make the playoffs, even if it's just a wild card, Caleb Williams is going to win the award because of the narrative. Bears have been bad for so long, or maybe not bad, but they've been so up and down as one of the premier franchises in the NFL. If they can get a quarterback that lead them back to prominence and break those records in year one, he's going to win the Rookie of the Year. He is not my pick, though. Jaden Daniels plus 475 is my pick. The reason for that, the running. It's just that simple. Like Caleb isn't going to run as much as Jaden will, and Jaden does. They'll scramble them as much, but Jaden can do what Lamar does. Think about that Cincinnati highlight from years ago when Kevin Harlan said he is Houdini about Lamar Jackson. That's the stuff that Jaden can do. He's the LSU tape last year, they were a really bad team in terms of defensively. You watched their offense play and you thought they were scoring every single drive because Jaden Daniels was that good. And then they had the two number one receivers on the outside. I'll just remind you of his stats once again at LSU last year. 4,900 total yards and 50 touchdowns with 4 turnovers. Now, he's not going to do that in the NFL, but if he can put up somewhere, close to 1,000 yards rushing, over 3,500 to 3,800 passing yards, and then, a cumulative of 30 plus touchdowns, I think he's going to win the award because Washington is a much badder team on paper before the season starts than Chicago is. So you think about if Jaden can help them win 8 games or something, 9 games maybe, that they might give the award to Jaden because he stepped into maybe a lesser of a situation than Caleb was given. Next up, Marvin Harrison Jr., plus 650. Now, if Marvin wins, 3rd straight Ohio State player to win the award. That's saying something about the Ohio State University. Garrett Stroud won it, or CJ Stroud won it in 2023. Garrett Wilson won it in 2022. I just don't know if the Cardinals are going to be good enough to get Marvin the ball enough. He's good enough himself to win this award without a doubt. But can Kyler stay healthy all year? And can their offense be as explosive? Pew, pew, explosives, like Jonathan Gannon would say, enough for this Cardinals team and for Marvin Harrison Jr. to put up the numbers he needs to win this award? Now, it's interesting because a wide receiver, this is one of the easier awards for them to win. I told you 3 wide receivers, 4 running backs. So it's out there for him. And Marvin might be the most talented of the rookie class in terms of his position. I just don't know if the Cardinals are going to be anywhere near good enough for Marvin to even be in this conversation. Next up, you have Bo Nix plus 1,000. Like Bo Nix. Really excited to see what Bo Nix looks like running an NFL offense, especially with Sean Payton. The Broncos are just not going to be good enough. They're just not for Bo Nix to be in this conversation. When you talk about Jaden and Caleb, he's not going to put up the same type of numbers as well. He's not going to be asked to do as much as those other guys will as well. So I just don't think Bo is going to be able to put himself in that conversation. Malik Neighbors plus 1,400. I would bet him if his quarterback was literally anybody the fuck else but Daniel Jones. I'm not doing it. How do you bet Malik Neighbors to win Rookie of the Year if his quarterback's Daniel Jones? The reason you would do it is because you think Daniel Jones takes a step forward, and Malik Neighbors is just that explosive that no matter where he gets the ball, he can do something, break off, crazy long touchdowns. I just don't think the Giants' offense is going to be very good. I don't trust Daniel Jones. I think Dayball can get him the ball, but can Danny Dimes deliver it accurately and in space to where Malik Neighbors can make something out of it? I just don't think it's happening. Drake May plus 2,000. Can't make the bet. You don't know if he's going to play. You just don't know if he's going to play. Like I said in the last pod, I think the Patriots are starting 0-8, which means he's only going to play maybe 8 or 9 games if he does play this year. Perfect case scenario from what everybody in the media is saying is sit him for a whole year, let him sit out, play him in year 2. Similar conversation was happening with Justin Herbert when he came out of Oregon. Played in week 2. You've seen the rest of the history. Now, I don't think Drake May is exactly what Herbert was coming out of school, but they have the similar body type, and that dude can sling the pill. I just don't think he's going to play enough this year to even be in the conversation for this award. Last 2 rounding out the top 8. Xavier Worthy plus 2,200. Unless he's Tyreek Hill in week 1 in year 1, he's not winning the award. Lad McConkey plus 3,500. I'm a Chargers fan. Lad's not going to win the award. We're not going to throw the ball enough. He's not going to have 100 catches. Ladd McConkey's not going to win the award. I think this is a 3-person race between Caleb Williams at plus 135, Jaden Daniels plus 475, Marvin Harrison Jr. at plus 650. Once again, my pick for Offensive Rookie of the Year, Jaden Daniels plus 475. Let's go Defensive Rookie of the Year now. 7 of the last 10 winners, D-line players. Now, I'll be honest, I don't know a whole lot about the rookie defensive class. Remember, it took forever. I think it was the 15th pick, the Colts, or maybe the 16th pick, the Colts. The Colts were definitely the first team to take a defensive player, and he is the favorite to win the Defensive Rookie of the Year. That is Latu from UCLA, plus 400. Guy's got one of the most incredible stories. Was at Washington, was medically retired by the doctors, comes back I think it was a year and a half later, gets cleared by the UCLA doctors, transfers, and then becomes a monster and becomes a first-round pick. Latu plus 400. Not going to be my pick. Dallas Turner was drafted by the Vikings out of Alabama. He's plus 450. I don't think the Vikings defense is going to be good enough for him to be in the conversation for this award. Maybe. I don't know. He's from Bama. You know he's probably going to be a damn good player in year one. But my pick to win the award, because based on value, Jared Verse from Florida State at plus 900. Been hearing a lot of great things about him starting in year one as a rookie, next to his buddy Braden Fisk as well. Jared Verse, 29.5 tackles for loss, 18 sacks in 45 career games. I just think the Rams defense is going to be pretty good this year. It'll be balanced because of how good their offense is. I like Jared Verse plus 900. I like the number the most. 900 for a guy that should be on a pretty good defensive line, on a pretty solid team. I'm hoping Jared Verse can put up the numbers he needs to win Defensive Rookie of the Year at plus 900. Next 2 guys on the list, Byron Murphy, plus 1,000. Seattle D lineman, listed as a backup right now. Just don't know if a D tackle is going to be able to put up the numbers, the stats that everyone's going to look at in year one for people to give him the award. Terrion Arnold, cornerback from Alabama, plus 1,200. Lions cornerback. He's going to have like 4 or 5 picks to win the award as a rookie. And from that position, the Lions defense will be really, really good. But are they going to throw at Arnold enough? Is he going to be able to put up 4 or 5 interceptions to put himself in the conversation to win the award? Chop Robinson, plus 1,600 out of Penn State. Maybe the sleeper of this one, just don't know if he's going to get enough time on the field to win the award. Then you also have Quinyon Mitchell, plus 1,600. Eagles first-round pick. Same conversation as Terrion Arnold. You've got to have to put up significant interception numbers, pass deflection numbers to win the award, to win the Rookie of the Year award as a cornerback. And then last is Peyton Wilson, plus 2,500. Linebacker, NC State, I believe it is, for the Steelers. Got banged up a little bit in one of the preseason games. He'll be just fine. Peyton Wilson's going to be a freak show for that Steelers defense if he stays healthy. I promise you. He will be. He's a Steeler through and through. Just don't know from the linebacker position if he's going to make enough tackles and, enough tackles for loss and all those other stats in order to win the Defensive Rookie of the Year. But he's going to be a solid player in the NFL for a very long time, especially in that Steelers system. That wraps up your Defensive Rookie of the Year conversation. Once again, my pick to win is Jared Verse from the Rams at plus 900. And that is your NFL awards prediction. And now let's look ahead to this weekend. First ever edition of PWay's Parlay here on One Way Sports. It's something I used to do when I was back at school. Disclaimer. I said it in the beginning. I'll say it again. Disclaimer. I have never hit one of these bets. Ever. Not one time. When the UFC rolls around, different conversation. But in terms of these football bets, PWay's Parlay, it's usually 4. We're going 3 today because I really, really want to hit this bet in week 1 and get us off to a good start. But once again, feel free to fade if you want. I will take no... It will not upset me at all. I'll probably respect you if you do. But guess what? If I cash this and you faded me, you're going to hear it. You're going to hear from me because I'm going to boast about it if I hit this bet in week 1. Nobody hits bets in week 1. It's so unpredictable, so hard to guess. I even texted my brother, say, hey, what do you think about this? He said he hates every single pick on it, which means I love it even more because fuck him. We're hitting this bet. But if you want to, feel free to fade because, like I said, we're over. We're still looking for our first dub here, fellas. Still looking for the first one. So we're going 3-leg parlay Sunday's games. Once again, this is from DraftKings. It was plus 590 when I looked last. First bet on the parlay. Steelers plus 3.5 against the Browns, I think it is. No, it's not. Steelers plus 3.5. Let me check who they're playing in week 1 real quick. Sorry about that. Steelers plus 3.5 in week 1. You want to know why I am betting the Steelers in this game? Sorry, they're playing the Falcons. Revenge game in Atlanta for Arthur Smith, their new offensive coordinator, plus 3.5. So the Steelers since 2015, they're 4-4-1 in week 1 against the spread. You're going to say, Parker, you're an idiot. How the fuck are you betting that? Well, they're 3-1 against the spread in week 1 in the last 4. They lost last year to San Francisco, but they had won 3 straight against the spread under Mike Tomlin. And one of those was they went to Buffalo and beat Buffalo in week 1. I love this bet. I don't love the Steelers all year, but if you love the Steelers anywhere, it's week 1. Because if there's one team that is going to be prepared, that I have no doubts about, there's others. But if there's one team for sure, it's a Mike Tomlin-led Steelers team. Russell Wilson, veteran quarterback, will have them ready to play week 1. I think this defense is going to be fired up, humming. And I think Arthur Smith, playing against his old team in Atlanta, is going to want to beat the brakes off of these boys. And he's going to want to run the football down their throat, control the clock. And if the Steelers lose by 3, we cash that freaking bet. So let's go. Like, I love the Steelers at plus 3.5 here. 3-1 against the spread in week 1, the last 4. That is why I'm riding that one. And I'm trusting in Mike Tomlin to get the boys at least against the spread win in week 1. Next up, don't know how much I love this, but when you hear the stats, it might convince you. Cowboys and Browns under 41. I initially locked it in at 40.5. It moved to 41. So you guys are probably saying, well, those are the two of the best teams in the league. Sure, but they're also 2 of the best defenses in the league with 2 quarterbacks that have question marks. Maybe not as much Dak as Deshaun. But here you go. Browns defense in 2023. Number 1 defense and number 1 passing defense in 2023. And they've given up, or they've only scored, 17 points per game in week 1 since 2015. Not a huge number. Remember, 41.5 is the number we got to stay under. So now let's go to the Cowboys. They had the 5th total defense last year. And they average 22 points per game in week 1 since 2015. You add that up, under 41. That's why I like it. I think this game could easily be 20-17. That's what I think it could be. I hope it is. But I like the under 41 in this game. Week 1, just listened to J.J. Watt do an interview yesterday. He always thinks that defenses are just a little bit ahead of offenses in week 1. I'm going to bet. This is a strictly defensive bet. I like both defenses. I'm going to trust both defenses to keep these teams under wraps a little bit. And then they go under 41. Under 41 is the bet. Second bet on that parlay. Last but not least, our third and final leg is going to be the Rams plus 3.5. Now, the Rams are 6-1 against the spread in week 1 with Sean McVay. They show up and play in week 1. I don't know who they're playing. The Lions in week 1 on Sunday Night Football. That's right, in Detroit. And you kind of think about the Lions in the same spot last year against the Chiefs. They were so ready to play that game, the first game of the season, and prove that they were this new team on the rise and that the end of the season before wasn't a fluke. And they showed up in Kansas City and beat Kansas City. I think the Rams are in a similar position. The Lions go to the NFC Championship game. They beat the Rams in the playoffs last year. Everyone, including me, is picking the Lions to win the Super Bowl. I think the Rams keep this within three, though. I think this is a close game. I think they can win this game because the Rams are going to be looking for revenge. And if Kupp and Puka are both healthy in week 1 and Stafford slinging that pill, why can't they win in week 1? The only issue is that I worry about the defense against the explosive Lions offense, but I'm going to bet Rams plus 3.5, strictly based on what the stats have told me in the last under Sean McVay. The Rams show up in week 1 and they win against the spread. That is why. So the full parlay, you can see it on your screen right there. Steelers plus 3.5, Cowboys, Browns under 41, and then Rams plus 3.5, about plus 590 is what that parlay is at. Well, that wraps up the second pod for One Way Sports. We've made it. We have officially made it. Tomorrow, full slate of college football. You kick off at 9 a.m. with Michigan and Texas. I cannot wait for that game in the morning. Full slate of college football on Saturday. And then we did it, boys. We did it. There's also a game tonight. Packers-Eagles in Brazil. That'll be interesting to see. One of the best games of the weekend, and they just decided to put it in Brazil. I cannot wait to watch that game tonight as well. College football Saturday. And then we all turn on that TV. Some of you may just go specific channels, but a lot of us cannot wait to see that countdown and hear that beautiful voice of Scott Hansen say, 7 hours of commercial-free football start now. A couple more sleeps, ladies and gentlemen. That'll do it for me on this episode of One Way Sports. Thank you guys for tuning in and staying until the end. Please like, comment, subscribe. If you could, tell your friends that PWay's got a podcast and we're talking sports every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. That'll do it for me today for this podcast. We'll see you guys on Monday with a full weekend of football reaction from week 1. See ya.